Welcome to the Village Board meeting for the Village of Pleasantville. Today is Monday, November 12. If you are watching live on Monday, November 12, we encourage you to call in if you have comments or questions. Our call-in number is 769-1677. Our next regular meeting is 2 weeks from today on Monday, November 26th. Work session at 7, regular meeting at 8, as always. A number of announcements to make. First, I want to thank the members of the Fantry Nickel American Legion Post here in Pleasantville for their assistance in yesterday's ceremony honoring Veterans Day, which we did at the gazebo. As perhaps lots of you know, it was a special Veterans Day because it's the 100th anniversary of the armistice that ended World War I. Not only a nice occasion to honor our veterans, but also an interesting opportunity to look back over the 100 years that have made clear that World War I was not, as it was hoped to be, the war to end all wars. So, we've been causing you much confusion, I dare say, with our plan to pave Wheeler Avenue. Between contractor troubles and weather troubles, we've had a plan that had to get changed twice. Eric, latest is?
We have weather moving in this evening, so it wouldn't be ideal conditions for repaving. We're looking next Monday, but we have not received confirmation. When we do, we'll send e-blasts out and update the public.
Okay. We're getting close to the point when it may have to wait till the spring, right? Because the asphalt plants change.
Yep.
All right. A couple of things to point in the near-term schedule. We have a meeting this week on the 17th over at the Clinton Street Center at 7:30 p.m. About coyotes. Chris Nagy, who's a coyote wildlife biologist and is from the Mianus River Gorge. Correct. Is coming as a speaker. He knows a great deal about coyotes. Nicole's talked to him. Eric and I have talked to him at some length. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for folks to hear more, and also with anyone who has any questions to interact with the board with their concerns. So,
Is it not the 15th?
Yeah, it's the 15th.
I got the date.
15th,
I said the
yeah.
date wrong. Sorry. So it's this Thursday, November 15 at 7:30 at the Senior Center. Same place we had the meeting last time. The Music Festival, as I've commented before, is scheduled for next July 13, so mark that on your calendars. And then the folks at Pleasantville Strong wanted everybody to know that there is a community marijuana forum on November 19th in the Pleasantville High School Library. It's an event sponsored by the Pleasantville Middle School PTA and Pleasantville Strong. The topic being marijuana legalization in New York State, how to have conversations with your child about marijuana and the developing brain in the current policy environment. So I will say, certainly from where we all sit, the potential legalization of marijuana presents a whole lot of issues. I don't say that as a moralist. I say that as a policymaker. There are some significant concerns, and families might want to be thinking about that now, and so I encourage everybody who can to attend that event, again, November 19th at the high school library at 7 p.m. Anybody else have announcements to make? Okay. With that, we will stop having our auditor sit here with nothing to do and invite Rob Daniele from PKF O'Connor Davies, our auditors, to present the recent audit of our last fiscal year.
Okay, well, good evening, and thank you for having me present the audit results for the Village of Pleasantville for the fiscal year ended May 31st, 2018. Before, I put together a PowerPoint, but before I begin, I just wanted to thank the village administrator, Eric Morrissey, Mary Schwartz, Noreen Reagan, and Robin Rizzo for their professionalism and really for their audit readiness, which makes for an effective and efficient audit. If you turn to page 2 of the PowerPoint, I put together a table of contents. We'll briefly
Can I
go
interrupt
through-
briefly? Can you give this in a PDF? So we'll, for those at home who are interested, we'll put this
Yes.
PDF up on the website.
Sure.
Pleasantville-ny.gov. Okay.
So on page 2, I put together a table of contents. You'll go through a summary overview of responsibilities from management's part, as well as us, the auditors, and certain required communications. We'll spend a little time in the general fund, which is the main operating account of the village. Have some 2018 revenues and expenditures compared to budget, as well as some historical, some revenue history, major funds, revenue side, as well as the expense side. A couple of graphs on showing you a 5-year comparison of your total revenues and expenditures of the general fund. Another graph that shows the top 3 or 4 drivers of your budget. Some fund balance analysis, and then we'll spend some time on a few minutes on the other funds. If you turn to page 3, quickly summer overview. Our fieldwork was completed in August with some follow-up and completion in September. Our deliverables include the independent auditor's report on the basic financial statements. You have a certain required communications along with the management letter. We also audit the Village Justice Court and issue a separate report. We also audit the Pleasantville Community TV, which is a component unit of the village. And that's also a separate report. It's also included in your financial statements. Page 4, very quickly, management's responsibility is to select and implement the appropriate accounting policies and to fairly present the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And since we assist management with the preparation of the financial statements, we make sure that they are in accordance with the standards. Management is also responsible to establish and maintain effective internal controls over financial reporting to comply with laws, regulations, and provisions of contracts, and really to provide us with all the financial records so that we can complete the audit. Turn to page 5. We take that information and we form and express an opinion on the basic financial statements taken as a whole. We've issued what is termed an unmodified opinion. An unmodified opinion is a clean opinion. It's the highest level of assurance that an entity can receive, and it basically states that the financial statements of the village present fairly the financial position of the village at a specific point in time as of May 31st, 2018, once again in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We also are required to perform tests of the village's compliance with provisions of laws and contracts. We are required to communicate in writing any deficiencies in internal controls that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. I'm happy to report that there were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. I believe there were 2 comments that we categorized as observations to improve internal controls. We are required to communicate any fraud or illegal acts that are noted during the course of our audit, and again, no fraud or allegations of fraud to report. We encounter no difficulties in the conduct of our audit. As far as uncorrected and corrected misstatements, what that means is there wasn't an entry that we passed on. If there was an entry that we proposed, it was recorded by management. There was no disagreements with management, and we are independent with respect to the village. Page 6 is a summary of the 2018 revenues and expenditures compared to budget of your general fund. The details can be found on page 55 in the large financial statements. You can see there are 4 columns. The first column is the original budget, and that's what the board approved back in the spring of 2017. And again, from a high level, your total revenues were just under $15 million. Your expenditures of $14.5 million, representing an excess of revenues over expenditures of $450,000. You did have some transfers in. You anticipated transferring in $325,000 from your water fund, and you had transfers out. $200,000 was originally planned to be moved to the capital projects fund to continue capital improvements, and $927,000 was to be transferred to the debt service fund to cover principal and interest on bonds that became due. You come down to that net change in fund balance, and you'd see a bracketed $350,000, and that's what the village appropriated in 2017 to be used to balance the 2018 budget and thus provide a form of property tax relief. The middle column is the final budget. You can see that there's some amendments made to the revenues and expenditures. During the year, there's certain unanticipated revenues and expenditures, and the budget is modified accordingly. The village did take in some parks and recreation charges as revenue and increased the expenses accordingly. Also took in some federal aid for a public safety and public health grant. You come down to your transfers out, and you can see the transfers out went from $1.1 million to $1.8 million. The village did appropriate some $725,000 to be moved to the capital projects fund to continue some village-wide capital projects. So you anticipated using $350,000 of your own fund balance to balance the budget. That was amended up to $1.4 million. The third column is your actual results, and you can see your actual revenues came in at $15.8 million compared to your final budget of $15.3 million. Once again, a favorable variance of a little over $500,000. Again, your revenues exceeded the final budget in almost every category. Most notably, your sales tax figures came in better than budget, and we'll discuss that in the next slide. And you had certain parks and recreation charges and parking meters that came in better than you anticipated. On the expenditure side, you can see your expenditures of $14.5 million compared to your final budget of $15.2 million. Also a favorable variance of $670,000. And again, expenditure savings across the board, most notably in the area of your general support, which are your administrative costs, and in the area of your employee benefits, savings in health insurance and your police, fire, retirement, as well as your employee retirement system. So you take your revenues, subtract your expenses, and you factor in your transfers out. The village did end the year with expenditures that exceeded revenues by $538,000, the third line from the bottom, the third column. So you subtract the $538,000 from your opening fund balance of $4.7 million, and you end the year at $4.1 million. And again, we'll talk about the details of the $4.1 million in a later slide. I just wanted to point out that third line from the bottom, the net change in fund balance. Again, as I mentioned, you anticipated using $350,000 of your own funds. That was bumped up to $1.4 million. And as you can see, you did have expenditures that exceeded revenues because of those transfers to capital projects, but you didn't need to utilize the entire $1.4 million that you anticipated. So that swing from anticipating 1.4 to actually only needing $500,000 or so represents all the way to the right a budgetary surplus of $861,000. Page 7 is selected major revenues of the general fund. There's 6 or 7 items that make up, as you can see at the bottom, roughly about 90% of your budget. The details of these can be found on pages 57 through 59 of the audited financial statements. But we start with your property tax revenues, and you can see your property tax revenues pretty consistent with 2017, consistent with the prior year, as the village has remained within a 2% property tax cap. Your non-property tax distribution from the county is your sales tax. You can see your sales tax revenues are up a little over $70,000 compared to the prior year, and they came in $82,000 better than you anticipated when you put your budget together. $1.1 million compared to your final budget of $1.025 million. Your parks and recreation charges also have been on the upswing. You have an after-school program that I believe was started last year that has expanded significantly, and there has been greater enrollment. So you do have an increase in revenues in the current year compared to the prior year, roughly about $250,000. But with that, you also have some expenses that increased based on that after-school program. Your parking permits and parking meters, the revenues are consistent with the prior year. However, they did come in better than you anticipated by $33,000 or so. Your fines and forfeited bail, which are your tickets, your revenues are up over $54,000 compared to the prior year. And you also, your revenues came in about $91,000 better than your final budget, better than you anticipated. Your mortgage tax revenues have seen a slight decline from the prior year, which is an indicator that the economy is somewhat slowing as interest rates are rising, although there's a lot of construction going on here in the village, so hopefully that turns around in the following year. And your last line there is your transfer in from the water fund. Again, the village did some research in a prior year, and the state controller told them that they can transfer funds that represent a reasonable profit back to the general fund. They did so in 2017. There was some capital needs in 2018, so the water fund did transfer monies to the capital fund, but it did not transfer money back to the general fund in the current year. Page 8 is just taking those same 6 or 7 revenue items and giving you some historical 5-year look back. As you can see in your property taxes had a little upswing in 2015. As in 2014, the board did vote to override the cap. So you see a little spike in 2015. However, from 2016 to 2018, revenues are all within the property tax limit, so you don't see those significant spikes. Your non-property tax distribution from the county has been trending upwards since 2015. Again, saw a little dip in 15, but it has been going up 6, 7, 8% the past 4 years. Your parks and recreation charges, again, were steadily at between 2014 and 16, so a big upswing in 2017. Again, that accounts for your after-school program, your pool operations, the Panther Club, as we mentioned, and you do run a music festival. So as I mentioned before, your revenue spiked up, but you also had some increases on the expense side. And that continued in 2018. As you can see, your revenues are up almost $200,000 more than 2017. Your parking permits and parking meters have been trending upwards since 2014. There was a fee increase implemented in 2016. However, as you can see there, your revenues have been pretty consistent at roughly around the $560,000 level. Your fines and forfeited bail actually declined slightly in 2016, but has been trending upwards in 2017 and 18. And your mortgage tax, again, as you can see, it was trending upwards up until 2016, and has been slowly declining the past 2 years. Again, that's correlated to the interest rates, as I mentioned. Page 9 is just some selected major expenditures within the general fund. Again, the details can be found on page 60 to 62. We start with your police. You can see your police expenditures are up roughly about $120,000, $130,000 or so. There was a slight increase in overtime in 2018, as well as an increase in purchase of auto equipment. That wasn't there in 2017. But pretty much your expenditures came in on target of what you budgeted. Your transportation costs, which include your street maintenance, your central garage, your snow removal, and your street lighting. Again, those are consistent with the prior year. As you can see, there was a budgetary savings of about $53,000 in the current year. Your parks and recreation programs, again, $2.9 million in the current year versus $2.6 million in the prior year. As I mentioned before, your Panther after-school program, you did have to hire some, I believe it was 10 part-time employees. So as I mentioned before, as your revenues went up, your expenditures certainly went up a little bit. Your employee and police retirement system, you can see those expenses actually came down from the prior year. The rates are set by the state, and those monies are invested in the stock market. So as the market does well, these rates usually stabilize, and those rates haven't changed in the prior year. So you actually see a savings in 2018, and you also had $152,000 budgetary savings compared to your final budget. Your health insurance is up roughly about 7 or 8%, and that's relative with all the premium increases. We see that with the night shift plans. Also, when a new hire replaces a retiree, the village is kind of covering both employees for that time period. So there were, I believe, 3 or 4 retirees in 2018, and there were some employees that the village offers a buyout. Those employees opted out of the buyout and took coverage and that increased the expenses in the current year. And then you have your transfers to the debt service fund to cover principal and interest. Those are known expenditures. You can see those dropped as a bond was paid off in the prior year. A 2005 bond issue was completed, and that resulted in the decline of about $300,000 or so. And you can see in your capital projects fund that's going to vary based on needs. And you can see in 2018 the village moved about $928,000 to cover capital projects. Again, quickly on page 10, again, a historical perspective over the past 5 years of those same categories. You can see that police, that's going to vary based on overtime needs, but has been relatively consistent over the past 4 years, roughly around the $3 million mark. Your transportation expenses actually increased in 2015 and then dropped in 2016 and has increased slightly in 2017 and 18, but they're back to right around the 2015 levels. Your parks and recreation charges also have increased in 2017-18. Again, as I explained, the various after-school programs, your pool expenditures as well as your music festival contributed to those increases. The employee and police retirement expenditures, you can see actually they have been declining. There was a little upswing in 2017, but the rates have remained relatively stable and we're back to the 2016 level. Your health insurance increasing roughly anywhere from 6 to 8% per year, consistent with the night shift increases. And again, as I mentioned, in 2018, you did have a few employees that opted out of the buyout, so you provided full coverage for them, and that increased the expense in the current year. And your transfers to the debt service fund, again, you can see that those have been steadily going down as you're paying down the bonds. And your transfer to capital projects fund, and that's going to vary based on the needs of the village in any particular year. And you can see from a low of $160,000 to a high in the current year of $928,000. Page 11 is a 5-year comparison of your general fund total revenues and expenditures. And you can see in 2014, your revenues were about $14.1 million compared to your expenses of $13.5 million, roughly about a $500,000 or so surplus. So your revenues were outpacing your expenditures. Same thing in 2015, a little bit less. Your expenditures were a little over $14 million compared to your expenses of $13.9 million. In 2016, we saw a little upswing where your revenues exceeded expenditures by roughly $600,000. Again, in 2017, your revenues exceeded expenditures about $280,000. But then in 2018, again, this is the general fund. You decided to do some capital improvements, transfer those monies rather than incur some debt on those projects. So you did have expenditures that exceeded revenues by some $530,000 in 2018. So you saw a little decline in 2018. Page 12 is just your top drivers of your budget, both on the revenues and expenditure side. You can see from the revenue side, your real property taxes make up about 2/3 of your budget, to about 67%. Your non-property tax distribution, or your sales tax, roughly about 9% of your budget. And your parks and recreation charges make up about 8% of your budget. So those are the top 3 drivers on the revenue side. And when you look at the expenditures, you can see that your public safety, which is your police, is about 23% of your budget. Employee benefits are about 23% of your budget. Your culture and recreation programs are about 18% of your budget. And your general government support, which are your administrative costs, are roughly about 10% of your budget. Page 13, just circling back, is a 5-year fund balance analysis of the general fund. If we look, we're going to focus on the 2018 column, but if we look at the total fund balance at the bottom, you can see that from 2014 to 2017, your total fund balance had been trending upwards. And then in 2018, the village did appropriate funds to cover those capital projects and improvements, as I mentioned. So it saw a little decline. But Of the $4.1 million, you do have money set aside. $42,000 is what we call non-spendable, set aside for prepaid expenditures. Another $47,000 is set aside for future capital projects. You are utilizing $390,000 to balance the current budget you're in, the 2018-19 budget. And your unassigned portion, which is the free and clear, is $3.6 million. We like to compare the unassigned to your 2019 adopted budget, the 3.6 compared to your $16.4 million, and your fund balance is roughly about 22%, actually down a little bit from last year of about 27%. However, you did do those capital improvements without incurring additional debt. Page 14, just quickly, you do operate other funds. You have a water fund. And again, you can see your water fund had expenditures that exceeded revenues. And again, that was a result of transferring monies again to the capital projects fund. The water fund transferred some $582,000 to cover some water projects in the capital fund. But it still has a fund balance of about $970,000. You have a debt service fund where again, monies are transferred from the various operating funds to cover principal and interest. And that has a fund balance of $311,000, but that money is restricted for debt service purposes. You do have a capital projects fund where you took in about $1.7 million in revenues, most notably from the transfers from the various funds, and you expended about $1.4 million, just under $1.4 million, and you still have about $950,000 in fund balance. You do have some 12 active projects, I believe, ongoing. You have a refuge fund, again, where expenditures did exceed revenues, but you did transfer monies to the capital projects fund to cover some DPW equipment, a front-end loader, as well as some renovations at a storage facility, roughly just under $100,000 combined on the two. And lastly, you have a special purpose fund to account for certain trusts and certain parklands, and again, that has an ending fund balance of $172,000. Page 15, I just wanted to show your debt service requirements. Page 15 is your outstanding bonds as of May 31st, 2018, a little over $10 million. At the bottom of page 15, towards the left, we are required to report the payments to maturity over the next 5 years and then in increments of 5 years. So I took what your debt service requirements are in 2019 all the way to the right there, and you can see from the general fund, your debt service requirements are just under 5% of your total general fund budget of the $16.4 million. On the water fund, your debt service requirements are $872,000, representing a little over 20% of the water fund's budget. And in the refuse fund, you can see your debt service requirements are $14,000 on a $1.1 million budget, a little over 1%. Page 16, I just put in here, you do have what we call OPEB, other post-employment benefits. There's a new pronouncement that'll take effect next year. These are obligations that are due retirees based on labor contracts that are currently in place. You do hire an actuary to calculate this. This liability at the bottom, the $9.7 million, doesn't run through your funds, but it's something we are required to report and footnote. The only change that's happening at the bottom, you see we recorded $9.7 million as of May 31st, 2018. The pronouncements allowed, or the regulations allow you to amortize the liability over 30 years. Well, the new pronouncement, that went away. They're going to say, hey, you got to record the total liability. So next year, you're going to report that top number, roughly around $22, $23 million. Again, it doesn't affect your budget process, only to the effect of the fourth line item from the bottom, contributions made. That's what you're currently paying on a pay-as-you-go basis. So the $700,000, most of that is running through your general fund. So, and that's slightly up from the prior year. So we do have to record that liability. It won't affect your budget process, but it's what we record in what we call the entity-wide statements, which is going to make your fund balance go into a negative, but it's going to make most municipalities, if not all, go into a negative balance.
I mean, all, right? I mean,
mostly all of them, yes.
right. none of us have the capacity, we're not allowed to fund
right.
You
this.
can't
Can't do
fund,
it
New
if
York
we
State
want.
doesn't have a funding mechanism, so you can't put money aside,
Right.
correct. And that's really it. The last page is we do consider fraud. We do inquiries of management and other personnel. We look at journal entries to make sure that the documentation is attached to it and it's reasonable. We look at canceled checks to make sure that the village is adhering to its check signing policy. And we look at bank reconciliations, again, looking for out-of-sequence checks or unusual disbursements. And again, no instances of fraud or potential fraud were identified. That's really it.
So could you, our debt service expenditures for fiscal year 2018 were 5.66% of our total expenditures. How would you characterize that number relative to peer communities, similar size?
We've seen anywhere from a low of 3% to a high of 10%. It's all based on your capital requirements.
Uh-huh,
So
And
you're
would you-
probably in the middle, if not lower end.
uh-huh. So certainly in a responsible debt service position.
Yes, very much so. Yes.
Okay, and then relative to 15 years ago, the bond rating agencies seem very, very anxious to see fund balances that 15 years ago they never would have asked for. Is that what you see in general?
Yes, I mean, school districts are only have a maximum that they could have in fund balance.
Right.
Which is 4%. There is no general rule, but I guess the state controller came out and said anywhere from 5 to 15% would be relatively healthy fund balance. And although yours has declined a little bit, it's still well over the 20%.
Mhm.
So I think you're in a pretty good position to meet some future challenges.
Certainly that's been our view of it, although obviously we're not trying to hold on to money we don't need, but when you consider the range of risks we confront
Right.
in a given year, it seems like we're in a responsible position.
Right, and you're appropriating that money.
Further,
to-
if from the standpoint of the rating agencies, if we followed the controller's advice, we'd get dinged on it, right? If you had a,
They want you to utilize, right.
but if you had a 5% fund balance, you're going to see your bond rating drop.
Yes, and your interest rates could be high.
And arguably might similarly be true even if you had a 15% fund balance. They seem, my sense of it is they're looking for north of 20%.
They haven't come out and said that, but
Well, we'll ask them, right? What do you think?
you're right, though, it will affect interest rates, but.
What's your take on that, Steve?
I agree.
Yeah. It's just, we're, perhaps it's after the crash of 10 years or so ago. Those people seem to be looking for municipalities to be much better funded.
Much better funded, but they also want a conservative budget, so they
Right.
don't want you,
Yeah.
they don't want the excess to just
Right.
keep building up.
Yeah,
But you are
nor do we,
utilizing,
right.
So,
But anyway, based on what you see in other communities, we're in a pretty solid position.
yes, I would say that's a fair statement.
Okay. Other questions?
Any major journal entries you guys had to work through?
No, I believe there's one that we always do on taxes and one on retirement.
Right,
Normal stuff that we wait for 60-day collections.
right.
The rules say that anything collected within the 60 days after year end, you consider it to be good receivable. So we take those collections and the rest we set up an allowance for.
Right.
So that has to wait, so to speak.
I think I already know the answer to this, but in my regular world, I'm dealing a lot with 606 adjustments and things like that. Does that play a role with what we do at all?
I don't think so.
Right? So we're not really contracting in the regular sense, right?
Right.
Okay. And the last question I had was on page 6. Just want to make sure I have this math right. Our total expenditures were 14.525.
Right.
And then if I want to reconcile that with the chart on page 11, where our total expenditures are listed at 16.381, that is adding in the 1.845
The
of
transfer.
the transfer out, right?
Yes, yes.
I just think that people may,
Yes,
Noted
that's a
discrepancy
good
there,
point.
and-
It's revenues and what we call other financing sources.
just for the folks that are gonna pull this down off the website and study
Yeah.
it granularly. That's why that doesn't match.
Right.
I feel like I had another one. All right, thank you,
Anybody else?
and congrats on the
Yes.
unqualified.
I thank you.
That's really important.
Appreciate it as always, and Mary Schwartz leading the finance department. Robin, Noreen has some history there. Eric,
Yeah.
Morrissey, and Patty Dwyer. So a lot of good folks did a good job, and we very much appreciate it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yeah, and for the folks listening, in this world, you know, an unqualified auditor's report is the holy grail, right? That's what you always want to get, and so that's, again, a great accomplishment for you guys, and congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much
Thank
appreciated. And thank you, Mary.
Oh, unmodified, I guess is the terminology you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
use. In my world, it's unqualified, sorry. It's not that was wrong. Oh, well.
All right. Any comment from the public of any sort? Our call-in number is 769-1677. Absent that, let's go to the resolutions. 237, Nicole.
Okay, we start with a big one. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the retirement of Superintendent of Recreation Linda Bellofatto effective January 5th, 2019, and the letter of retirement is attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Linda notes what we already knew in her letter, that she has served the village of Pleasantville for the past 21 years. So we wish her well in her retirement effective January 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. Steve, 238.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the agreement with TicketWeb for ticketing services associated with the Pleasantville Music Festival effective November 12th, 2018 to July 30th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
So TicketWeb is the smaller event branch of Ticketmaster, and they're the same group we have worked with in recent years.
Correct.
With success, right? Any question about, so it's a 2-year deal?
You got a
Yes.
whole 3 weeks not thinking about the music festival before you started?
Yeah,
They want it ready
Yeah.
for Black Friday.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
All right.
The
So,
price didn't go up, did it? I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
It
no,
was
it's fine.
flat, right?
the fees match the park contract.
Good.
right. And they've been a successful provider.
Oh, they've been
They've been a home run.
terrific.
Yeah.
All right. Noreen says they're terrific. That's good enough for me.
Stephen Ahern at TicketWeb
Yeah.
is terrific.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public
Aye.
record.
Aye. Motion approved. 239, David.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the request from the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce to reserve parking spaces in Memorial Plaza on Saturday, November 26, 2018 for activities associated with the event Photos with Santa. Further resolved that said approval is subject to receipt and approval of the required insurance certificates.
Is there a second?
Second.
So the Chamber of Commerce will be launching this as part of their holiday activities. Here's my question. The permit application says the requested date is November 24, but that must be wrong, right? No, that is
It
right.
was
So the
whatever
resolution
on
says the
oh,
26th.
Then it's the 24th.
The 24th
Correct.
is the Saturday.
Small Business Saturday.
Right. Okay, so mover and seconder, okay with amending the resolution to Saturday, November 24?
Yes, sir.
So
All-
Santa's showing up the 2 days after Thanksgiving? Sorry.
That's the kickoff.
Just-
It's Small Business Saturday and the kickoff of the season. So,
Oh, okay, all right.
and Santa has a lot of places to go, so they got to start early.
Gotta get going.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion approved. 240, Nicole.
All right. Okay, resolved that the following.
Sorry, I upended you.
Resolved that the following budget amendments are hereby approved as listed below. Appropriate fund balance, general fund. We've got a transfer to capital in the amount of $50,080 for tax certs from Henkel's first and second payments.
First of 2 payments.
Oh, first 2 payments,
Right.
thank you. $17,580 for garage. I wasn't sure about this when I read it.
Read it through and then we'll.
Okay. Retirement payout sick, $4,994. Garage retirement payout vacation. For the water fund balance in the amount of $79,029.15, transfer to capital for the water main project. In the appropriate fund balance of the refuse fund, $4,395. Refuse admin retirement payout sick, $1,249. Also refuse admin retirement payout vacation. Increased revenue and expense water fund, $35,000 for water non-resident repair, water transmission outside service. Increase in revenue and expense of the capital fund, $150,000 interfund transfer from the general fund for street resurfacing, $50,000 interfund transfer from general fund for capital sidewalk project, $79,029.15, also interfund transfer, in this case from water fund for water main project. Budget transfers capital fund for the close of fiscal year 2018 projects rolling to fiscal year 2019.
My favorite.
The grand total of 23 cents for the capital sidewalk project from being moved from 2018 to
If there's
2019.
Any doubt that we're watching the pennies, right? The 23-cent.
We'll tell you which square inch the 23 cents is funding.
And then $46,490.05 for street resurfacing, again moved from 2018 to 2019. Increased revenue and expense debt service fund, $346,083 debt service premium on obligations, $3,115,000 debt service advanced refunding, $79,422. It goes to debt service fiscal agent fees, and $3,381,661 debt service payment to refunding escrow agent.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so back to the questions
Let's look
there.
back this one a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
The retirement over the refuse fund and the general fund is Sam Zullo.
Oh, okay.
His salary and benefits are spread out in the general fund and the refuse fund.
Okay.
and it's a payout of accrued benefit time
Correct.
per the contract.
Thanks.
And the debt service fund, I assume, is redoing the bond, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to,
Right.
so that's the refinancing, the refunding to the escrow agent that we did in July?
Right.
All right.
All right.
What about the water main?
Okay, so the
Tell me
water
a-
main.
Yeah.
That ran over budget. We had Superintendent Econom draft a memo to the board that explains
Which we've
some
got in
of
the backup
areas
there.
that he went over budget. In total of about $79,000. There were some issues with GIS measurements, some rock that they came across that they weren't expecting. The good news there is keeping that project in-house as we did saved the village probably more than $1 million. That water main project a few years ago was projected to be about 1.6,
Right.
and it's coming in around $600,000. So can't be mad at Jeff too much. But,
Not mad at him at all, I
yeah,
would say.
Yeah.
I just wanted to-
They really did a good job with that project. And it's-
Kudos to Jeff.
Yeah,
For,
that's an
Yeah.
important
Right.
project for the village as well.
and as we have commented before, but for the benefit of the public, Jeff's a licensed professional engineer, which we have not had on staff for quite a long time, and that has been enormously beneficial to us.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Any further questions or comments?
No, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 241, Steve.
Resolved that the pre-check register dated November 12th, 2018, covering check numbers 91380 to 91610, is hereby approved as listed below. From the general fund, the special purpose fund, the water fund, the capital fund, the refuse fund, and the trust fund, a total of $525,748.24.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or questions on the check register? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. 242, David.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes from the Village Board meeting on October 22nd, 2018, attached.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments or corrections to the
I
minutes?
couldn't even check.
Mine was a little easier than yours.
Exactly.
No.
We owe you. Comments or corrections on the minutes? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion approved. 243.
All right.
You've got all the
That's
finance
short.
tonight.
I think I can handle it. Okay.
You have to read all those.
Although, I don't know if I can read any more numbers from here on out. Resolved that the following capital accounts are hereby approved to be closed. So the account, do I read all the numbers out?
No, you can just say the
As shown
description.
in the record.
Okay, the street resurfacing fiscal year 2018 is rolling to fiscal year 2019. Sidewalks, also 2018 rolling to 2019, and the water main project is completed.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Capital accounts closed. Did you vote, Nicole, or are you?
Aye.
You're marinating.
Yeah.
Abstaining.
You want to keep those open?
Aye.
Let's think about it. Let's talk about it.
Discuss.
To that 23 cents, we're still stuck
There
on.
you go.
Yeah, I know.
244, Steve.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees, upon the recommendation of the Director of Senior Services, hereby authorizes the appointment of Azu Ogba as a part-time food service helper, job code 0305-05, at a rate of $13 per hour, effective November 13th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
So was this somebody they were already working with or replacing, or this is the new?
Yeah, we had this part-time.
Yeah, I remember the part-time rec was there, so that's what they're using.
That's what they're
Have they
filling
started the new food service?
They did, yeah.
And
It's
any
covered.
any
Good feedback so far overall.
Actually became necessary when there was no hot water in the kitchen. And they had somebody they could go to that morning and order an additional 25 meals
So
for
the
the
idea that
dining
these
room.
guys would backfill in a pinch worked perfectly, right?
Very well.
Great.
Yeah.
They've been reliable.
Hot water has
That's
since been
awesome.
resolved. It's
Yes.
just awaiting a part
Yeah.
that failed, so. Okay, all in
I'm
favor?
glad to hear it. Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
motion approved. Is there any new business? New announcements? I just want to give a shout out to the 11 members of the Pleasantville High School Chorus who woke up early and took part of their Sunday morning yesterday to sing the national anthem at the gazebo as part of the Veterans Day ceremony. You can see that, and it's worth looking it up when the Veterans Day ceremony goes up on PCTV at pctv76.org. So I commend that to you, and I want to thank the school district for helping to facilitate that, and those 11 high school students for coming down on a cold Sunday morning and making it a special occasion for all of us. So that was very much appreciated. While we mention the subject of PCTV, those of you who've ever been to their studio know that for the past 20 or so years, they've been on Jackson Alley behind what is now Miyabi. They have moved from that site for a variety of reasons, and we have established them up at the Lake Street Pump House, which is that low brick building that's on the right-hand side when you head up Lake Street towards the pool. It was, the big room there was formerly the site of these large diesel pumps that were part of the water distribution system. They fell into disuse after we signed on as part owner of the Newcastle water plant, and eventually were removed, and that room was used for storage. It is currently being modestly renovated to become a new studio for PCTV with an office on the side, and within a relatively short period of time, the PCTV studio will be up and running. Shane is, I hope, nodding back there, indicating the same. So that occasions another shout out to the school district for having allowed Shane and PCTV to take advantage of the school's studio in off hours as an interim site while they wait for their new studio. So again, thanks to the school district on that front. Farm market is open this Saturday. It's their last outdoor farm market. Then the following week, the week of Thanksgiving, will be fallow, no farm market at all. And the week after that will be the first indoor market at the Pleasantville Middle School. Same as always, shout out to the school district for assisting in making that possible, a great community program. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is a bunch of us participated, as we do annually, in a joint meeting with the Newcastle Town Board at the water plant that we are a minority owner of. So the village bought into that plant, which creates filtered clean water, about 25 years ago, something in that order. And it's a very, very interesting place to visit to see what's going on. That is obviously not a public facility, but tours are available on an advance notice basis, and quite a number of school groups have gone to see it. But it reminds you that a whole lot of stuff happens to make it possible for water to come out of the faucet and for you to be able to drink it. So
They're doing a great
And
job.
Really, really clean,
Right.
Yeah.
beautiful, wonderful,
Right.
Yeah,
pure
really
water.
State of the art.
yeah, not every community can say what we can say, and that is that the water that comes out of that filtration plant exceeds federal standards in every category, and it does so.
It's actually 10 times
Yeah.
as clean as state standards.
Right.
Right.
So it's a very, very interesting process that is, we're all reminded of it with our annual visit to the plant. So anybody else?
Did you see that?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So we just wanted to pay our respects. A longtime member of our Conservation Advisory Council, Doug McDonald, passed away recently. He'd been in a nursing home for several months and in declining health, but as a long email chain here amongst various CAC members will attest that he had very wide-ranging interests, and he's very passionate about our environment and very knowledgeable. He was a scientist and a researcher, and was never ending in his efforts to try to leave a better world for our children than the one he found. And so, thanks out to Doug, and our condolences to his family and all those who knew him, and thank you for his service.
Thought is that there'll be a memorial service
think
of some
so.
sort
There'll be
after the new year. so.
Correct.
All right, thank you for that, Steve.
Sure.
Is there a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel and real property matters?
A
So-
motion?
so-
Sorry, go ahead.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. See you in 2 weeks.